worked the closing shift on Jackson Street. Name tag, crooked stain on her sleeve. Every night the same fluorescent weather. Everybody said you'll end up here forever. She laughed too loud when they called her naive. Lit cigarettes, she never learned to breathe. Said one day they'll say my name somewhere, like she could already hear it in the air. She'd stand outside beneath the water tower glow, eyes fixed hard beyond the county road. I was born for something bigger than this. She said it like a promise nobody could resist. Hands shaking, heart racing, young enough to believe there was a whole world waiting past the trees. They all rolled their eyes, but she wore that fire proud. Swore she'd leave this dying town, even if she had to burn straight through the clouds. Through the clouds. Summer heat wrapped thick around her skin. Cheap motel parties, broken violins. Everybody drifting nowhere slowly, while she talked like the stars were owed to her only. She kept magazine scraps beneath the bed, dreams too loud for the house she lived in. Her mother cried, "You need something real." She answered, "I'd rather die than never feel." Every Friday by the blinking Texaco sign, she swore her life was bigger than this life. I was born for something bigger than this. She said it like a promise nobody could resist. Hands shaking, heart racing, young enough to believe there was a whole world waiting past the trees. They all rolled their eyes, but she wore that fire proud. Swore she'd leave this dying town, even if she had to tear the heavens down. Heavens down. Came in hard that year. She disappeared for nearly 2 whole weeks. People whispered softly at the diner, but nobody said much out loud. Then one Sunday all the church bells rang cold when moving through the pines. A picture folded in trembling hands, 23 frozen in time. They carried her beyond the trees. No more fluorescent weather, no more small town prayers. She got farther than the rest of them, just not the way she swore. And the county line lights faded behind her. For the first time in her life, she was finally somewhere bigger than this. Some dreams leave before the dreamers do. into the bleachers, half drunk on cheap beer and future speeches. Football lights glowing against the dark. She traced forever slowly on his arm. He said, "This town's too small for what we are." She laughed and pointed at the stadium stars, said, "We won't end up like our parents did, like 17 could bargain with the wind." Every night felt endless in September, like nothing beautiful could disappear. We were gonna stay young forever, two hearts beating through the speaker weather, windows down, singing loud enough to drown the dark. Everybody said it never works out, but we swore they didn't know us somehow. We thought love alone could make us who we are. Prom night glitter stuck to her bedroom floor, college letters scattered by the door. He talked about factories hiring west of town. She talked about California like gospel now. The summer came hot and merciless, days growing shorter with every cigarette. He held her like he could stop the clock, like wanting something meant you got to keep it. The water tower watched above the highway, while their future pulled in separate ways. We were gonna stay young forever, two hearts beating through the speaker weather, windows down, singing loud enough to drown the dark. Everybody said it never works out, but we swore they didn't know us somehow. We thought love alone could make us who we are. October came and the calls got shorter, new cities living inside her voice. He stopped asking when she was coming home, started working double shifts instead. Then one night somebody saw her downtown, back for the weekend in another man's coat. He smiled when they told him, like something inside him had already known. We were gonna stay young forever, that's what we said underneath the stadium colors, before time taught us what it takes away. Everybody says it never works out, now he hears it every time her name comes out. 20 years later at their reunion bar, she asks if he still drives past her old street. He lies and says he doesn't anymore, but every Friday when the lights come on, he still looks for her, like 17 survived somewhere. Some promises don't break all at once. They fade slow enough for you to watch them disappear. They hung cheap silver streamers from the rafters, the same crooked gym from 20 years ago. Paper cups and photographs on folding tables. Everybody smiling younger than they know. Old classmates circled underneath the banners, talking loud to cover what time stole away. Someone played the songs we used to drive to, like the town still thought we never changed. And for a minute, nobody looked tired, nobody looked haunted, yeah. When the gym lights came back on, we all became kids again, laughing too hard, talking over songs we knew by heart. Everybody reaching backward, trying to touch who we were, like nothing beautiful could ever really leave. Tommy Brick still drinks too much whiskey. Sarah married young and moved to Tennessee. Jamie talks about his teenage daughter like he woke up old accidentally. I saw your jacket hanging near the doorway, blue denim faded soft around the seams. For one split second I believed completely you were somewhere moving through the crowd unseen. The winter air slipped through the open hallway, carrying that October football smell. When the gym lights came back on, we all became kids again, laughing too hard, talking over songs we knew by heart. Everybody reaching backward, trying to touch who we were, like nothing beautiful could ever really leave. Someone asked if anybody heard from you lately. The whole room dipped quiet for a breath. Then your mother smiled the saddest smile imaginable, and said some days it still feels like she just left. I stared at your senior picture by the punch bowl, that crooked grin frozen in 1998. And suddenly every story in the room sounded like people trying to outrun fate. When the gym lights came back on, we all became kids again, except your empty chair beside the wall stayed empty all night long. Everybody reaching backward, trying to touch who we were, but some people leave pieces of themselves here forever. And when they played our graduation slow dance, your mother cried into her paper cup, while the whole damn room sang every word for someone who never got to grow up. Some towns don't know the difference between memory and ghosts. You watch the evening news like it was a religion, the blue light flickering against the kitchen wall. I'd sit at the table with straight A report cards, waiting for you to finally look at me at all. I'd fold my hands together, keep my voice down low, and hand you the paper like it was the most important thing in the world, thinking if I just stayed quiet enough and perfect enough, you might finally see the daughter that you raised. I learned to measure my worth in the space between your words, which meant I was always coming up empty. I spent 20 years building a monument to a nod you never gave, swallowing down the feeling that I was taking up too much room. I thought if I just worked a little harder, stood a little taller, I could finally buy a fraction of your pride. But the currency was always no good here. I drove back into town for the weekend last October, sat on that same faded couch from '93. You asked about the highway, stared out the front window like I was a polite stranger pouring your coffee. We sat in the living room while the clock ticked on the wall, and I felt that same old tightening in my chest, the desperate girl holding her breath, waiting to be seen, waiting to be told I wasn't entirely invisible. And the silence was exactly the same as it always was, but suddenly it didn't feel so heavy. I spent 20 years building a monument to a nod you never gave, swallowing down the feeling that I was taking up too much room. I thought if I just worked a little harder, stood a little taller, I could finally buy a fraction of your pride. But the current couldn't see was always no good here. Fundamentally broken inside of me, that a teacher's grade meant nothing to a man with calloused hands. But watching you stare at the frost on the glass, the truth finally settled in my bones. You weren't withholding the light to punish me, you just didn't have any light to give. You never even knew how to turn it on. So I am tearing down the monument to an art you never gave. I'm done shrinking myself to fit inside your quiet rooms. I am walking out the front door and letting the screen door you couldn't afford to pay. Just the hum of the television and the sound of my tires on the gravel. Everybody tells the story different. That's what happens after all these years. Some say it started at the river party. Some say long before we ended up there. I remember your red sweater clearly, wrapped around your waist against the cold. You kept laughing at the stars above us, like we were too young to break anything important. There are nights I still replay it slowly, trying to line the details up, but memory bends, memory bruises, turns every truth into something usable. I tell myself we were just reckless kids, trying to survive the weight of growing up. And everybody leaves pieces out, everybody smooths the edges down. That's what memory does. Your mother still avoids me at the market, though I can't imagine she remembers why. People hold on to strange little grudges in towns this small and winters this long. Jamie says you wanted to leave early, but you know how Jamie liked to talk. Besides, you were smiling in the driveway right before we disappeared into the dark. At least like you were smiling. That part changes every time, because memory bends, memory bruises, turns every truth into something usable. I tell myself we were just reckless kids, trying to survive the weight of growing up. And everybody leaves pieces out, everybody smooths the edges down. That's what memory does. There's a crack in my windshield I still haven't fixed. 22 years staring through the same broken line. Funny, the things we decide deserve saving. Sometimes I drive past Miller's Creek Road and swear I can still see the guardrail bent inward, like the earth itself remembers better than I do. Then I hear your voice again, not scared, not angry, just saying my name once, very quietly. Memory bends, memory bruises, but some truths stay sharp no matter what you do with them. You said you didn't want me driving, you said I'd been drinking too much. You reached for the wheel, and then now everybody tells the story different, but they all look at me the exact same way. And I've spent 22 years calling it an accident, because the other version would destroy what's left of me. There's a reason some memories blur themselves. The last time I saw Emily, she was standing outside Murphy's Market, wearing that old green army jacket with the sleeves pulled over both hands. October wind pushed leaves across the parking lot. Her hair kept falling in her eyes. She laughed when I said she looked exhausted, said everybody looks tired at 25. And for a second she sounded exactly like high school again. We said we'd never end up like this, drinking warm beer behind the football field, watching our parents slowly disappear into bills and silence and factory shifts. Back then the future felt enormous, bright enough to save us somehow. God, we were so certain then. She asked if I still drove out past Bellevue, said she missed the river and the cold. I told her I barely had time to think anymore. She smiled like she understood too well. There was a bruise hidden near her collarbone. I pretended not to notice it. Small towns survive on shared denial. Everybody sees, nobody says it. Before she left hugged me longer than usual. He said we'd never end up like this, working double shifts to stay afloat, losing pieces of ourselves so slowly nobody notices them go. And standing there beneath those parking lot lights, I almost asked if she was okay, but she was smiling, so I let myself believe her. 3 weeks later, your mother called me just after midnight. I remember the kitchen tile freezing under my feet as her voice kept breaking apart on the phone. They said it was accidental, like that word explains anything. And ever since then, I keep replaying Murphy's Market over and over, trying to find the exact moment you were asking me to save you. We said we'd never end up like this, but the truth is you knew you already were. And suddenly I remember everything differently, the shaking in your hands, the way you kept staring at the ground, how hard you held on to me in that parking lot. God, you weren't reminiscing about high school, you were saying goodbye. And I was too busy mourning who we used to be to realize you were mourning yourself. Now every time October comes back around, I drive past Murphy's Market slowly, like maybe grief can rewind something if you hurt hard enough. Your mother kept the porch light burning nightly, like somehow you could see it overseas. Every Sunday after church, she'd straighten the framed photograph beside the keys. Main Street tied yellow ribbons to the oak trees. The diner put your picture by the register. Everybody spoke your name so carefully, like grief might break if handled rougher. And every night I drove past your empty driveway slowly, still half expecting your truck outside. You said I'll be home before the summer, back when the world still sounded small enough for promises to survive a war. And I held on to every letter, every crooked sentence in your handwriting, like if I memorized you hard enough, nothing could take you from me. Nothing could take you from me. February brought the cable television, green night vision flickering through the dark, bombs exploding softly in living rooms 3,000 miles from where you were. Then one morning, just before sunrise, 2 men parked outside your mother's house, dress uniform glowing blue beneath the porch light, while the whole town pretended not to look. Missing in action, 3 words that turn the air to concrete. You said, "I'll be home before the summer." Now your mother cries beside the kitchen sink, like prayer can rewrite history somehow. And I still sleep with your last letter folded underneath my side of the bed, because losing you completely feels impossible to survive. Quietly after that, people married, moved away, had children. Your photograph faded slightly at the diner, but your mother never took the ribbons down. Everyone called it tragic. Eventually everyone stopped talking about it, except her. Except me. Then one August afternoon, the phone rang while I was stocking shelves at Murray's Market. And suddenly the whole world tilted sideways. You were alive beyond Kuwait, beyond the wire fences and burning oil skies, beyond every prayer we buried with your name. Half starved, half broken, but breathing. And your mother collapsed, crying in the front yard, while church bells shook the whole damn town, like heaven itself had finally answered something. Now every summer when the cicada starts singing, you sit beside me underneath those same old trees, laughing softly at how impossible life can be. And sometimes at night, I still reach over just to make sure you're really there. Some miracles arrive so late, they almost look like grief at first. The water tower shadow stretches out across the pavement. The football lights have been shut off since late November. I'm parked outside Murphy's Market with the engine ticking quiet, staring down Bellevue Drive toward the county line, just listening to the quiet settle over the roofs, thinking about the memories resting in these quiet rooms. Oh, the Jackson Street dreamers, we used to say it like a ticket out of town, before we realized building something real takes time to settle down. And learning how to build a life right here on solid ground. if I close my eyes. The girl tracing the California coastline on a dashboard map. The empty folding chair in the high school gymnasium. A man with calloused hands staring through the kitchen glass. And two people making coffee a million miles apart. I used to look at all of us and only see the breaking. Like every quiet compromise was a fatal mistake. Oh, the Jackson Street dreamers. We used to say it like a ticket out of town. Before we realized building something real takes time to settle down. And learning how to build a life right here on solid ground. The fading paint meant we were fading too. But what if nobody failed? What if nobody was broken? What if just waking up and trying again was the most beautiful thing we ever did? We are the Jackson Street dreamers. And it was never a title for the trapped. It is a chorus for the ones who kept hoping anyway. For the hearts held together by stubborn grace. For everyone who survived the winter and stayed. We spent years thinking the whole point was escape. Like happiness existed somewhere far from here. But every story we tell about those years is really a story about each other. We thought we needed saving. Maybe we just needed each other.